Okay, we're going to start with the nation. Federal government halts deduction of CBN's loans to states. Picture here of a tanker burning 10 burned to death in Lagos-Ibadan Express explosion. APC presidential aspirants back Tinubu, says Adamu. U.S. plans $1 million humanitarian aid for flood victims. Stop your blackmail, speakers tell Omo Agege. Nigeria to launch Africa's first payment card in January. CBN and AMCON announced sale of Polaris Bank. Okay, which story are we starting with? U.S. plans $1 million. Who has that story?
No, let me take the story of what happened yesterday. So, the protest took place, organized, of course, by...
The EndSARS?
Yes. So, the conversation that I wanted to highlight was why the tear gas was fired at them, because that was what I was hoping to quickly get at. But the walk was a peaceful walk, championed by Mr. Macaroni as well as Folarin Falano. But the conversation was the police explained that they fired tear gas, that the reason they did that was they arrested a few people. Protest that was gathering was supposed to be a peaceful process. There was coffins on the floor. They said a stitch in time saves 9. They were already gathering in the polling as opposed to a peaceful procession, because the conversation before was to drive through. But it became a gathering. Peaceful persons were allowed to move around without interference from the police, but some of them decided to become lawless by mounting the polling, the toll complex, and then they were putting coffins on the floor there, and that was why they decided to disperse them, that they didn't want it to become more rowdy or get out of hand. That was the reason for dispersing, and that for a long time they allowed them to do the drive-through, but
okay.
Basically, that's the...
I was going to take the picture story. So, 10 persons have been burned to death, but the petrol truck burst into flames, actually, between Corn Oil petrol station and Shagamu interchange corridor yesterday. I think it was about 4 a.m. in the morning. It says the accident occurred after 4 other vehicles also were on top speed, ran into the truck and then set it ablaze. Excuse me. The fire caught a Mazda bus, which also caught fire with the passengers on board. So about 10 persons died instantly. Really, really sad. I think we even need more lights, more street lights. I'm not sure on that, on that entire corridor.
Yes, there isn't.
Yeah, we don't have enough lights.
Even if we cannot power street lights, can we have reflectors? I've traveled, and you will see that there are some places where there's no street lights, but they have these little stickers along the road so that you will know your light will bounce off it.
Even trucks should have reflectors.
Yes, everybody should have that reflectors.
Reflectors are very, very important.
And another story, Mujibadi.
Yes, so Nigeria to launch Africa's first payment card in January, and I think this is really exciting. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, is set to launch Africa's first payment card, similar to those of MasterCard and Visa card. The payment card, which will come under the domestic card scheme, is to hit the financial sector January 16, 2023. Now, in a statement by CBN yesterday, Nigeria is in a vantage situation, position to successfully launch a domestic card. And now this transformation, according to the Apex Bank, has been driven by rapid digital and technological innovation, increasing mobile penetration, and the proactive policy initiatives of the CBN. And I think it's really good because you're catching up with the times. We cannot be behind the times.
So the national chairman of APC, that's Senator Abdullahi Adamu, was saying yesterday that he is confirming that the other aspirants that were jostling for the presidential ticket of the APC are in good terms with Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Remember, there were speculations that, especially the vice president, I've not been seeing him around. People are going to be observing by 3 p.m. today because there's going to be a launching of their presidential campaign council today at 3 p.m. Many reporters were speculating that, are you sure that other aspirants who tried to take the ticket are in good terms with the party and they are still part of the entire team? Adamu said, yes, they had that. None of them have said anything again. According to his best of his knowledge, they're in good terms, and I know journalists and reporters will be observing at 3 p.m. today to see, especially if the vice president
how things would flow.
Will be there, because that's really the person they're asking questions about.
I want to quickly take the story of Polaris. Polaris Bank has been embroidered in this crisis of funds and ability to be stable.
Yeah.
But now it's official. The House of Representatives has already signed off the sale of Polaris Bank to Strategic Capital Investment Limited. They had paid 50 billion naira before as a upfront consideration. And the part that I really want people to be comfortable with, because I own an account in Polaris and people are concerned when they hear sale taking place, is that there is a full repayment of the sum of 1.3 trillion being the consideration bond that there was a lot of financial injection to stabilize the bank during the crisis stage by CBN. All of those funds will also be refunded to the government, and the structure has been put in place to ensure that there will be seamless transition according to what I read in papers.
Okay. The Punch. Governments may sell TBS, NIPPS, 25 key assets. Hashtag EndSARS youth demand justice, police tear gas protesters. 13 die in Ogun, Lagos crashes, FRSC blames night travel. Kogi gets first derivation allocation as oil producing state. Congratulations to them. We've lost our most valued crude oil buyer, says federal government. Kanu, a flight risk, federal government tells Supreme Court. AMCON sells Polaris Bank at 50 billion naira, and national carrier domestic airlines project Nigeria and Ethiopia deal. Okay, which story? You know, yesterday I took a story concerning the fact that Nigeria would be looking to to cover the 10.78 budget deficit, looking at doing that with domestic loans and trying to sell some assets. Well, in the papers today, they are looking to sell TBS, that's the Tafawa Balewa Square.
Really?
Yeah, and a few other national assets, you know, because we are saying, where are they going to get, when is the domestic loans, where are you going to get it from? Domestic asset purchases. Those are some of the assets they're looking at to purchase. And he said that there are no bidders yet, but they've registered the assets with the BPE, that's the
How do we know the valuation?
And then we're going to be seeing how that happens. But I don't know. I'll read the article, but let's take another story in Punch.
What story? Okay, because I had the EndSARS story. But
oh, okay. So inflation risk. We've been monitoring the story. We all feel the impact of inflation. So, but IMF is now giving us in clear terms the risk of instability brought about by inflation in Nigeria as well as sub-Saharan African region, worsened by the food crisis, the food insecurity that they fear. He said, according to the paper, he said, even though the rise has been less dramatic than in other parts of the world, the drivers are different. Inflation has nearly doubled from pre-pandemic levels, risking social and political instability and worsening food insecurity. And they're just informing us that as a government, we need to do more to plan ahead. Yeah. Also, we have the flooding as part of the issues that are going to increase food insecurity. So by contrast, they said only modest increase in food prices in other developed countries. They are having their own inflation, but we are facing it more with food and basic things. Finally, the conversation ended with examples of Ghana, Malawi, Mozambique, Nigeria, Ghana, and all others, and the Economy and Monetary Union for both Central and Western Africa. We need to work together if we're going to solve the problem of the inflation crisis we're facing right now. Okay, so let me just go back to that story on the budget deficit I was saying earlier. So sources at the Ministry of Finance and Budget and Planning said that the federal government was considering selling or concessionaring the Tafawa Balewa Square in Lagos, as well as the National Integrated Power Project in Calabar. The government is also planning to sell or concession all the hydro power plants across the country, including Onya, Lowa, Usuma, Katsina, Ala, and Giri plants, and 25 others of such projects. According to the report, the federal government has mulled the sale of assets since the time of when the former minister, Kemi Odeosun, was also in office, where she confirmed that Muhammadu Buhari's regime readiness to sell all the national assets to raise funds. So the truth is that we are having revenue issues, and the government is planning on selling some of our major assets to get this revenue. I also have the story of, do you have another story in Punch?
It's still the same EndSARS protest. So, you know, just to add to what she said, in Punch here, we have a report that even peaceful protesters were shot at yesterday. So 2 years after, it's still the same thing. Yeah.
I didn't get that.
So there's a Juwon Sonyaolu that says, you know, peaceful protesters were manhandled by the police and then were violently assaulted. Some people even collapsed. The
chief executive of the NMDPR, that's the midstream and downstream petroleum industry, was saying, that's Mr. Farouk Ahmed, that as sweet as Nigeria's crude oil is renowned to be globally, we have recently lost our most valued customers, and our gas buyers are now competing with us because they also are beginning and now competing within the same market as suppliers. So those who used to buy gas from us are now becoming suppliers themselves. So all this points to the fact that Nigeria has to continue, if Nigeria is going to continue to benefit from its vast petroleum resources, we need to begin to invest and build sustainably in our oil and gas value chain. So that's of
we're
course,
celebrating Kogi getting crude, getting money from derivative from the crude oil. Nobody should celebrate all that. Let us think of how we would now use any fund we get to ensure we sustain
Moving on to Vanguard very quickly. Out-of-school children hit 20 million as poverty and insecurity worsens. $176 billion modernization project stalled as promoters battle federal government customs in court. Liz Truss resigns as UK Prime Minister after 45 days in office. Customs boss worries over meeting $3 trillion revenue target. Interpol arrests 70 suspected fraudsters linked to Black Axe confraternity in Nigeria. Politicians would find it difficult to rig the 2023 election, says IGINI. Alleged fraud, ex-Lagos AG Shashori Radrein granted 50 million naira bill. And we're under attack, LP chairman cries out. Okay, what story are we taking?
Okay, so the politicians will find it difficult to rig 2023 elections. So former President, Electoral Commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in Akwa Ibom said, Mike Igini said yesterday that the 2023 elections will not be business as usual for politicians that are hoping to engage in malpractice. And then he says with the new Electoral Act that a lot of things have been put in place and it has already been implemented, and it will be very difficult to rig elections, and people who are planning ahead of time to manipulate the process, that they are in for a big shock. They're also focusing on voters' education, which is very, very important ahead of 2023 elections. So we're looking forward to a good time, hopefully.
Another story?
So UNICEF. The UNICEF report, they've been updating us. UNICEF is the United Nations Children's Fund, has said that about 64% of Nigerian children between 0 to 5 years do not go into any early education, any early childhood education. Globally, though, the statistics is that 1 in every 3 child gets to go into early education, but we don't have that opportunity in Nigeria. And the organization's education specialist, Yetunde Toyosi, was saying this at Sokoto in a 2-day dialogue on children education, talking about Child Rights Information by Child Rights Information Bureau, and the conversation was around how we can engage and get more children, improving the percentage even by 5% of the 2%. Many states also do not get the UBEC fund, and the idea of the UBEC fund, Universal Basic Education, was to provide states with funding, but they are supposed to provide counterpart funding, and many states don't bring their own counterpart side. So if they bring their own fund, they can unlock more resources to help them improve the education across their states. But this is a challenge that we need to deal with. Uneducated Nigerian citizens would mean that they are uninformed to make right decisions in future. So we need to improve the statistics.
Okay, so I had that story, but I guess I'll take the Interpol.
Oh.
So the International Criminal Police, Interpol, says that it has arrested 75 persons linked to the Black Axe cult in Nigeria. The report said that the global operation, codenamed Operation Jackal, specifically was against the Black Axe fraternity. The operation involved about 14 countries from across 4 continents from September 26th to September 30th. Interpol said that they described the group as one that is rapidly becoming a major security threat across the world. Black Axe and similar groups are responsible for the majority of the world's cyber-abled, some financial fraud, as well as many other serious crimes, such as, they didn't even give the examples here, but quite a number of international crimes, especially regarding fraud and money laundering, has been linked to Black Axe. In South Africa alone, according to the report, 2 suspects arrested were wanted for the $1.8 million from victims that were arrested. So Black Axe, that's serious allegations against Black Axe.
And it's a coordinated effort, and I was happy that they were able to seamlessly pick out those that they needed to.
Are we done with Vanguard?
Flooding, I think the flooding is also in Tribune. The flooding, based on the flooding challenges, the story I've been taking, they said 2.8 million people are affected across the country, and the United States USAID has committed $1 million for immediate humanitarian support. Now, the reason I took the story is not because they are giving us money. The reason I took the story is because most of the time when aids come to the country, half of the aids actually go into agencies that are used to deploy the funds. We cannot be waiting for the United States $1 million, and some states might be waiting that, let's say they'll give us $1 million, so let's wait for them to bring it. No, we need to think within ourselves, resources within what we have, to help ourselves and stop waiting for foreign donors to submit their funds to help us to deal with our issues.
Okay, let's move on to Tribune. Anyalco 2023 poll crucial to Nigeria attaining its dream. Relief to states as NEC set to review bailout repayment modalities. CAN president will investigate members listed on the APC Presidential Campaign Council. 10 burnt as petrol tanker explodes on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Police disperse EndSARS protesters in Lekki with tear gas and water cannons. CBN and AMCON sell Polaris Bank to strategic capital. 64% of Nigerian children lack access to school, to childhood education, says UNICEF. Flooding, U.S. commits $1 million to assist Nigeria. And Boris Johnson may stage comeback as UK Prime Minister Truss resigns after 45 days in office. Okay, so let me start with the CAN story. The president of CAN, Archbishop Daniel Loko, has distanced himself from the just released amended Presidential Campaign Council of the APC. According to him, he said that in the statement that he expressed shock that the amended Presidential Campaign list of the APC has names of some of the outgoing officials of the Christian apex body. He now says he's going to organize an investigation to know why they are part of the Presidential Campaign Council. He says such development is worrisome because it runs against the well-known stance of CAN on being partisanship. And Archbishop Boko said that a full-scale investigation had commenced to ascertain how the officials of CAN became partisan politicians. I guess this is quite interesting because we know CAN has been vehemently against many of these partisan conversations, and to see that some of their members are now going to be part of the campaign council of the APC can be very, very disturbing and worrisome for them. Okay, let's take another story in the Nigerian Tribune.
Yeah. So there's a bit of political instability. And we yab ourselves that Nigerians we insult our own government. But we're seeing the same thing in UK where a lot of crisis is going. There's a lot of political instability. Now, former Prime Minister Truss resigned after 45 days in office. And there's speculation that Boris Johnson, who was the one before, might be coming back. Saying that he's going to join the protest against Liz Truss, and he might be contesting again to become the new prime minister. What does that mean for Nigeria? Nothing directly, but it just means that there's a lot of instability going on there. We shouldn't expect help from anybody that is also facing their own challenges. We should look within and solve our own problems.